Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Drama Surgery Podcast. And in this episode, I am going back to Korea. I am going back because I feel like these days I've just not been watching a lot of Korean dramas as much. But in this episode, I am going to be covering the new, currently airing Korean drama titled Our Unwritten Soul. And basically, this is a 12 episode drama on Netflix that follows two sisters that live two completely different realities, right? They live in such different worlds, even though they are twins, like identical twin sisters. They live in such different worlds and realities that, it's kind of jarring. And a lot of what this show is about is following these two sisters as they go through life. It's almost slice of lifey because you're kind of seeing how these two sisters kind of like just live through life and live through a lot of things like disappointment, workplace bullying, and toxicity, um, not achieving what they thought they would achieve, things like that, right? So it's a lot of that tone, right? Very mellow, I would say. And honestly, only two episodes that have aired, and it doesn't really matter. I love it. I really really like it. Like it's so good already, and it stars two of my favorite people, Park Bo-young and Park Jin-young, and they are just fantastic. Honestly, I feel like these two people are not a duo I would have expected, but they oddly enough, like they just have such good chemistry. And I will say, like Park Jin Young can have chemistry with a tree, like he can have chemistry with just about anything. Like he's just like such a good actor, and he's able to like pull off these kinds of roles that it's fantastic to see, right? And I am very very like happy to see like an idol become this good of an actor, right? So yeah, I will say that I just with two episodes aired of the 12, I love it so much already, right? And I look forward to more episodes. I will say that there are three main characters in this because technically Park Bo-young is playing two people. She's playing Yumi Ji and Yumiri, who are like twin identical sisters. So Park Jin Young is playing Iosu, who is one of the male lead that likes one of the girls, and it's probably going to end up with one of them. Whereas Ryu Kyung Soo is playing Han Se Jin, who is going to, I guess, be with the other sister, right? And so you technically have three characters, technically four, but three actors with four characters. So it's very interesting in that sense where like Park Young is probably gonna have to have a romance line and kiss scenes with these two people at the same time. But honestly, I am just so enamored by this idea and this concept that I am loving it very very much. I do like Park Jin Young way more, but honestly, Ri Kang Soo, wow me, show me what you can do, right? As of now, I would say that his story is not um as of much interest to me because I don't like how like the direction of the plot with that, but I know that it's gonna grow on me. I just know already, right? And a lot of that is just because I feel like Yumire is a more different character than Yumiji, who is more dynamic and has kind of come out as my main character, if that makes sense. Like she's the one I'm technically like considering like the protagonist, even though she's technically not. But I feel like the story kind of follows her. She's the narrator and everything, right? So I am kind of veering and like kind of just situated more to like her story and her plot line. But technically it's like technically Yumire is another like character there, right? But we'll see as time goes on like how that is presented. But yeah, honestly, I was gonna watch this from the beginning. So in terms of like just what I was thinking going into this, like obviously I was gonna watch it. Park Bo Young never misses. Honestly, she's just so easy to watch. And she's always constantly putting out good stuff, right? And yeah, I just like it. I will say that like on Park Jin Young, I feel like in this drama he plays kind of like this lovesick character. He plays kind of a character that has unrequited love for Yumiji, right? And he's not able to like be honest about it. So he's kind of a loser in that sense. He's like down bad for her and everything. And he's, one of the few people, I think one of three people, one of who is dead already, that can recognize the difference between the twins. And that I guess that stems from the fact that he likes one of them. And I guess that just like applies. And I will say that that's a fact. Like when I was in like high school, I did have like good feelings, not necessarily a crush on one of two boys in like twin boys. And I could always tell they were different because the way I just felt about one made it obvious for me that like when I saw his face, I just felt immediately like better, right? I just like his face was just prettier to me or like more beautiful to me, right? So that's factual, like that's a thing. And they were identical, right? Up to like we graduated, right? And it was always a struggle for a lot of people, but I always knew because one I liked just looked nicer to me. So it doesn't matter if they were wearing different clothes or the same clothes, like it just they always looked different, right? So it's the same here. He likes Yumiji and he can just always tell them apart. And so I will say that Park Jin-young's character in this is very similar to his character in The Witch, and I feel like he's played a lot of characters just previously that have this kind of like down bad, just really crush on like the female lead. And I honestly I don't mind it. It's a kind of trope I like, where you know, you have the male lead just be so in love with like the female lead. I don't mind that dynamic, and honestly Park Jin Young does it well. He does that well, so I have no issues with that, but that's just something I noticed. So yeah, let me just get right into what I think about this drama. I will say that I feel like the general vibe of this drama is kind of like I said, slice of life. It's small town vibes but also city vibes, and I find it interesting that when you're watching this, the vibe you get from Yumiji's world where she lives in the countryside, and even though she's going through a lot, you see like the lighting is very like just like light, right? And that also speaks to like her hair and the fact that she's blonde, right? It kind of adds to that in that like first episode when you're introduced to them, and you kind of see the corporate world where Yumire is and how gloomy and just like dark and mellow it is. And honestly, it tracks with corporate. As someone who works in the corporate adjacent world, like that just tracks in terms of like view and how I see the corporate world. It's just like this bleak place that is like a funnel for capitalism, right? And honestly, this show kind of shows that. It's a shame because obviously, like, you know, for Yumiri, I think part of why her view world and how like the color of her scenes look like that is because she's going through a lot, right? But yeah, I will say that her scenes are a lot darker than I would say Yumiji's scenes, which has like a comedic tone to it, undertone to it. And you can tell that even though like Yumiji has not like done a lot for herself or made a lot for herself, she's still like well liked to an extent, right? She's still like doing okay and she's a good person, like she's trying to take care of her grandma and all this kind of stuff, right? And even though her mom complains and everything, I'm sure her mom loves her a lot as well. I would say her mom is very problematic because, and I don't know why Asian parents are portrayed in this way, right? Like of all the people not to be able to recognize twins, it's like her mom. Although I don't know if I believe that her mom can't tell them apart. Like it's odd that like your mother would not be able to tell you apart. Like I feel that like she probably can and she just doesn't see anything about it. But that's the vibe they give, that like she just is not able to tell, and that makes no sense, right? Twins do not look that alike, right? But yeah, anyways, that's what I would say about this general vibe. I will say that, you know, a lot of this I feel is gonna be just like a healing drama. It's going to be like, especially for like Yumire's character, coming back from that depression because she's clearly depressed from what has happened, and like just psychological trauma from, you know, I think what seems to be assault, right? And you know, I assume that it's going to be a lot of healing from that, right? And a lot of growth even for Yumiji as she kind of finds herself and figures out what she wants to do, because she's kind of just like stagnant, and a lot of characters mention that fact about her, that she just isn't moving. And you know, a lot of that is because, you know, she's taking care of her grandma and she kind of has to just be there and remain there, right? So yeah, that is what I would say is general like vibe of this, right? In terms of the male lead, again, like I said, there are four characters. And I do think that Yumiji and Hosu have really, really good chemistry, right? And I will say that I like the fact that like Hosu is not just like the perfect male lead in terms of that, like he's, you know, smart, he's a lawyer and all these things. Like he has trauma. He was in a car accident, probably the one that took the life of his dad, because I don't think we've met his dad, and I don't think his dad is around. So I think that also the fact that he can't hear in one ear, and he's a little broken, to like quote unquote, in terms of the like, when Yumiji finally comes into his life, she's kind of this breath of fresh air that doesn't judge him, and someone that he feels is special, right, and helps him kind of like just be, right. And I think that I like that more than just like a perfect male lead, because that would just be boring, right, to have that person that's just going to come into Yumiji's life and like change it, and not have any real like personality to them. I like this a lot better. You can kind of tell why Hosu likes Miji a lot, right? She's that kind of bubbly, free person that he falls in love with. Kind of like reminds me a lot of like Chinese dramas, all those their high school dramas. There are a lot of like dramas like that where you have the male lead have gone through this trauma, lost a parent or something, and the female lead is like coming into their life and just like being that breath of fresh air and just like helping them through that, and you see how they fall in love with the light that the female lead has. This is kind of like that, in that also has liked Michi from like since they were kids, right? And so as Miji, that's another thing that I find that's interesting here, in that like they have like mutual feelings for each other from the very beginning. That's been like that since they were a lot younger, right? Why they've not pursued it, I'm sure it has just to do with like personalities and not communicating and not feeling good enough, things like that. But it's very obvious they like care for each other very, very much. I really like the scene where after Miji has swapped place with her sister, and Hosu is seeing her again for the first time. Again, he thinks that that's Yumire, and it's not, right? And he sees her face, and he kind of freaks out when he's back in the office, right? Like he kind of thinks that, oh my god, am I like falling in love with Yumire as well? Because he obviously has never felt that way for her, right? And so it's just interesting how he like has that moment of like fear, before he finally like puts two and two together. I'm like, no, I do know the one that I like. I know what makes Yumiji, and this is Yumiji, right? Before he has that, there's that moment of like just like freak out over that, right? And I find that very funny, and I do think they have very good chemistry. I have not seen that same chemistry with Yumire and the farmer Sejin, and I am sure it's gonna get better. Their scene's gonna get better. As of now, it's just like he's touching her on the farm, and it's not cute, right? So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure now that she's had like a whole crash out on him, he'll start to feel more for her, and they'll start to like move forward. Because again, I think that the farmer is a lot like Yumiji in terms of like personality, whereas like Yumire and Hosu are a lot similar in personality, and that's why we were a lot of people shipped Yumire and Hosu when they were a lot younger. That got Miji thinking they were dating, but I actually think that they are very similar, and that's kind of why they've not had feelings for each other, right? I think that the playfulness, the kind of just like freeness, the like YOLO personality that the farmer has is something that is going to like be good for Mireille. So I am interested in seeing her heal from that, because her character obviously has gone through like sexual assault of some kind, and so it's gonna be good for her to like just like breathe and have somebody that is there to just like cheer her up and make her see like the beauty of life again. And I think that Sejin is that character to do that, because he's so unserious. Like he acts so unserious, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, we've only done 2 episodes. I like it so much that I had to talk about it, just give my first impressions, because I think that despite just 2 episodes, it's very good. This is kind of like what I like to see in Korean dramas. I don't know, they're just very good at this kind of stuff. So yeah, I do really like it. I like I said, I think that the biggest thing from this is gonna be like healing, and it's gonna be very emotional. I'm sure like it's gonna be really, really emotional. I do find that I am looking forward to how it's gonna work out with Yumiri and Sejin, because of the fact that I don't think Sejin had ever met Miji. So he thinks that that's Miji, but that's actually Miri, and I don't know. I feel like that's going to play out at some point, and that will be like the climax of when they find out that like she's not actually who she says she is. in this case, I think it's okay because for Hosu and Miji, I think Hosu has already figured out that it's Miji, unless she like denies it. But I think he's not gonna believe her anyway. It's very obvious to him, right? Because he just knows the girl that he likes and has a crush on. So I think that in their case, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. But it would have been interesting if he never figured it out either and thought he was falling in love with Mirai, and they had this whole like conflict and angst about it. But yeah, I do find that I'll be interested in seeing how that will play out with Sejin. I see like a little plot line of like Mirai going back to the city and going back to work, and Miji like, switching characters back to like her role in the countryside, right? So I do feel like if they do switch back, it's gonna be interesting. And I see like this vision of Sejin just like losing it because he can't understand why he doesn't like Miji the way he used to like her, right? And it'll be interesting if he has that moment to where he just like obviously bonded with Mirai more, just like on like a different level, that even though it's like it looks like her and he has no reason to doubt that it's like her, he just doesn't understand why he doesn't like her as much or something like that, right? So I find that I will be very tickled if like he actually does not find out that like they are twins till the very end. Right? So yeah, that's kind of what I think about this. I think that it's very good. It's very artistic, very subtle. Like this thing, it's not very dramatic. Other than the moment where like Mirai is trying to like basically get off work. And it's I don't mean to laugh at that. It's just funny because I've had moments like that when I'm like in bed, like it's like 7 a.m. in the morning and my alarm just went off, and I'm just like, I wish a bus would just like run me over so I'd have to go to work. It's especially after like a public holiday where I got like an extra day off. I just feel so much worse on Tuesday. It's almost like abuse at that point, because it's like, what was the point of even having this holiday if on Tuesday I feel this terrible about going back to work? And that might be a sign I need to switch jobs, but I digress. So yeah, I think that generally it's kind of subtle, other than that one scene, and hopefully it stays like tight throughout. It doesn't like lose plot, right? But yeah, I do find I really like this so far, and it's just very very good. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more episodes about this. Yeah, so that's all I have really on this episode. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of the week. Have a nice one. Bye.